My guest today is Rand Larson, and I'll start with a tweet which Rand had posted some time ago in the beginning of this year. There was a time when you could build a nice, simple life as a business acquisitions attorney or a holdco owner in a small or mid-sized town or Orlando. You could have 3 or 4 kids, an SUV, a dog, and your whole family within a few miles. Lots of trips to Disney World, happy hours with your business friends, a solid, predictable life. That dream that felt possible in the 90s and early 2000s is gone. Inflation killed it. Now you're forced into driving around the country, meeting thousands of entrepreneurs. Is that a life you want? So this is your life, Rand, who is also the sponsor of this podcast. Again, thanks a lot for coming to the Holdco Builders podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I should say that tweet, I'm pretty sure I ripped that off from SMB attorney Eric Pacifici, who said the exact same thing in a much more meaningful way about, I think the traditional like 9 to 5 blue collar work, something like that. And I ripped it off and put a funny little twist on it, at least what I thought was funny.
Yes, it was funny. I took a screenshot of it. So owning a business can be a solitary grind. What you do is build communities and peer groups to give entrepreneurs a place to vent, swap advice, and learn how to survive the chaos. Again, you're the owner of the company ScalePath, which is the sponsor as well. So let's now talk about you. Please tell me, what exactly are you building, and then we will get into detail with everything.
Yeah, we're building a company called ScalePath. We're a community of small business owners. We group business owners into small groups of 8 business owners in similar niches, similar business models, and similar revenue sizes into group discussions, 2 hours once a month to help people, share experiences, talk about mistakes that they've made, talk about opportunities in their businesses that other people might be able to learn from, and overall, as a result of all this experience sharing, just grow faster with the support of other peers. And we're just trying to grow.
So your pinned tweet, which you did in December 7th, 2024, for all of you wondering how I make money, this is how. I can share the beginning. Like in the early 2022, I met an acquisition entrepreneur who had lost close to $2 million after buying this business. We are eating dinner together, and something he said really hit me. I'm sure you remember you writing this tweet, so can you share the story and how do you make money?
Yeah, I like that tweet because I think the first line of it is not the most important part. It's like, here's how I make money. I don't care about teaching people how I make money. It was an attractive headline to really teach a story of what a lot of business owners go through, especially when they acquire their first business. And the short story is, in early 2022, I met this guy. He bought a large commercial HVAC installation company in the Pacific Northwest and was pretty darn close to bankruptcy. He was heavily considering bankruptcy. The reasons why were he bought the company in late 2021, around December. Interest rates rose early 2022. This caused, this is why people talk about construction to avoid cyclical businesses like construction. Builders put a pause on new estimates, so he had a slowdown of new work coming in. They also put a pause on paying for work he'd already completed. So he's got money out the door. He's already paid for employees that he's not receiving in his business. He had an estimations manager who was significantly underbidding all of the projects that they were touching. So they were losing money on every project. And then additionally, his bank payments were going up. He had poor financial reporting. So this just created a storm of issues that caused him to lose, I think, over $1 million his first year of business. His entire working capital stack just gone, just wiped out. And obviously that causes 2 things to happen. Number one, the business starts to go into disarray, it becomes like very unhealthy. And you have to start looking at like financing options, and nothing's good when you're in the hole like that. And the second thing that happens is a very personal impact on you, the business owner, who is kind of down and out. you're preparing for what is probably an extremely large loss, deeply personal to you, something that affects your family, and it's just an incredibly difficult thing to go through. And this whole story of how we started building peer groups was, at the very least, like I could not help this person in many ways at all, but at the very least I could introduce him to other small business owners to talk to about his problems, because at the time I was managing a small septic and drain company, and I was the most relatable person to him. He's told me the classic thing, like, business ownership journey's lonely, can't talk to your employees, can't talk to your family, your friends don't really understand all the trials and tribulations that go along with it. And I said, hey man, I know a bunch of other business owners, like, let me just try to loop people in on a phone call. And that's how we started.
Okay. So now, like, a important tweet you also done, I don't know the exact date, but you've said that I've hosted over 30 entrepreneurship events with over 1,000 attendees across North America. At every one of my events, I found the same thing. The vast majority of entrepreneurs are optimistic, collaborative, ambitious, risk-oriented, taking ownership of their lives and future. I'm not sure how you feel, but in my opinion, these characteristics make up some of the best people to work with, build relationships with, and learn from. Long entrepreneurship. So my question to you is, for most entrepreneurs, it's super lonely, but you're on the other side. You see all those so-called lonely people. So what else, like, this is super optimistic and positive tweet, but what else comes to mind when you're doing these events and how it makes you feel, and the other side of it, of you seeing them being not so lonely? Quick break. Small business ownership is tough and unpredictable, and this is something you, I'm sure, know about. So today's guest, Rand Larson, he's the CEO of ScalePath, which is also the sponsor of this podcast, and they've built a community of real business owners. And what they do is, every month, Rand curates raw stories and actionable insights from operators in the trenches. All the wins, misses, and the messy middle you won't see on LinkedIn or Twitter. So if you're a searcher or already running a company, make sure you subscribe to the ScalePath newsletter and get the refreshing dose of reality about what acquisition entrepreneurs and owners are dealing with every day and what you can do and learn about it. So hit the link in the show notes or search for ScalePath newsletter, or simply go to www.joinscalepath.com and sign up for the newsletter. Now, back to the episode.
There's a couple things. The first thing I see, I think, is the impact. I think my favorite events are when you get as small of a group of people who have the most number of things in common as possible for even just a few hours. And generally what that looks like is 15 to 20 people. I think 15 is kind of a perfect number for 3 hours over drinks or dinner or whatever, who are all of sort of one ilk, whether it's specifically a searchers meetup or specifically business owners, whatever. The closer you can get people who can really relate to each other on what they're doing every single day, I think the better event that you're going to have. And the second thing, I think, is how sort of untapped it is. I mean, it is very odd for me in Akron, Ohio, to start driving around and doing events in like 40 other cities. Like, one large question on my mind when I started doing this was like, why isn't anyone doing this? Or why isn't everyone? Like, everyone should have one person in their city who just like gets people together monthly. And I've sort of learned about why. I mean, it's really difficult, or I shouldn't say difficult, but it's never the most pressing thing. And usually if you're that person, you're a small business owner who wants to gather people together, and small business owners are busy. It's very easy to get distracted. And as soon as you have to start like coordinating an event at a place and making sure people can show up, it just becomes a little bit difficult. But that's what comes to mind. These things are incredibly valuable. I wish more people would do them.
Now, trying to understand, going back to this very first peer group you created by almost like an accident. So maybe a follow-up question would be like, what did you see in that moment with your HVAC friend that others might have missed? Like, what exact value he got out of it? Like you said you were doing some intros to other people because you felt that you are not in the position to maybe give advice or support this guy?
At the start, it was entirely therapy. I mean, there wasn't any goal or ambition or idea that this was going to become a business when we started it. It was purely just giving this one guy an outlet, and as well as others, an outlet to talk with other business owners who know what he's going through. Because this was kind of my first time I had really seen how difficult being a small business owner is, at least at the most difficult part of his journey. That's how it started. It's changed quite a bit. We focus a lot more on getting an ROI out of, coming to a peer group call. Who are the different types of members you're going to meet and talk to and build relationships with? What type of information is going to be shared? We're much, much more narrow with the type of peer group that we build now. But when we started, it was just therapy, and we still have elements of that. But like, generally, what I would say is that a peer group where most of the time you're getting a strong return on investment, like every single time you show up, you are getting actionable advice. You're hearing about other mistakes people are making that you can avoid. Those are what really, roots a group, but always having an element where you have a group of people you can be fully authentic with and honest with is, getting that little 10-20% of therapy, or, understanding that the journey, it's less lonely, that you have a group of other people you can share those things with. That's very valuable.
When it comes to the timeline, when did this first peer group happen by accident? And when did you start to take this as a business, as a full-time thing?
Yeah. It started, I met that first business owner in February 2022. And I think we had the first peer groups, spun up by April. I think that was the date of our first meeting. And an entire year goes by, and I hadn't done anything. I'd started a second peer group for free, and then I was still just doing it for free. And then around, what actually happened is I was transitioning out of a role working with John Wilson around July 2023. And I had started a social media marketing agency and still was not, I was still not doing the peer groups full time. And I want to say it was closer to October 2023 or early 2024. I really think it was closer to that timeline, like October to 2023 to January 2024. Because then you saw, I think in February, I did the large list of, that's when we did the first round of events where I did 16 events in 35 days or something like that. So that's a bit of the timeline.
Mm-hmm. What were the early lessons when it comes to, and I think you have these questions whether to do it free or paid community. What is your take, and what is your maybe most importantly lessons, because there are lots of business owners listening, and sometimes it's smart to do like a free product. Sometimes you should do it paid. Like what have been your lessons when it comes to your business?
Yeah, there's a few. We'll start with free and paid because it's pretty simple to address. Obviously I'm going to be biased, but free peer groups can absolutely be done well. And broadly, I enjoy them. I've participated in them in the past. I've built them from scratch myself. The problems that I ran into when I was doing free peer groups is that you've got less of a buy-in from members, and in a peer group product like this, like having people actually buy in and pay money to invest is effectively investing in their education. It's similar as if you could download Alex Hormozi's course for free online, but if you don't invest anything in it, the likelihood that you complete a course is like 3 or 4% on average. And it's a bit similar in peer groups where you can have a recurring calendar invite where you're supposed to regularly show up to something, but at the end of the day, if you've got a priority in your business, you've got something that you're busy with, that's usually the thing that you're going to prioritize because you're more invested in something else than you are in the group. So with a free group, I've just seen attendance can be a bit lacking. There's less incentive for one person to sort of like pull and get people to show up because they have no incentive to get people to show up. And I think that's why you see groups like Vistage or YPO, like you are one member paying somebody $20,000 a year, and they've got a ton of other perks that they offer, but a large portion of that person's job is making sure that people show up. So there's free versus paid, and then the other things that I've learned, I think when we got started, I had a different idea of what a good peer group looked like and what a successful peer group actually looks like one that actually endures, where people want to build relationships with each other for a very long period of time. And that generally has come down to business model fit, similar revenue size, and similar personalities. Like the closer we can get to all three of those things of how members fit and relate with each other, the better. So, we've got 3 different groups that are B2B businesses. One's a bit more agnostic. Another one, it leans a bit more professional services heavy. And another is pure local service B2B. And just as an example, like the types of conversations that these guys will have are usually issues related to their business or problems that they are trying to solve that they don't have a good answer for yet. And when they can communicate to a group of other people who share the exact same problems and can understand and relate them with them easier, the quality of conversation is better. The quality of feedback any one member gets is also much greater. And that gives them better answers into their business versus if I put a software CEO, a digital marketing person, an e-commerce person, a plumber in the same peer group, the quality of conversation, they're certainly going to be able to learn new things. But when the plumber brings up something about their CRM service titan and it not integrating with something effectively, like they're not going to have a very specific answer to what they're going through. And that's sort of the niche that we found. Other peer groups run it differently, but that's where we found success.
Okay, paid and free. What about meeting online versus meeting offline, so-called in person? What I've seen personally worked well in life is first I meet someone online, then I go offline. I see I feel the energy. I travel if needed. And then I really understand who is this person, how he feels in real life, and then it's much easier to go back online. Then we don't need to travel anymore. It's like using a Zoom or a phone call or WhatsApp. How has it been in your case? And what's maybe has been the feedback from the members? What do they prefer, or how is it?
Yeah, feedback's interesting. We've done a really, really good job of structuring peer groups where again, similar personalities, similar business models, and all of our peer groups are virtual, so they meet over Zoom. We've done a good job of building those rooms, so they're great, but most of our members find something to engage with locally as long as they're in a city that can kind of sustain it. And I think both are very good, in my opinion. Having a virtual group of people in your same industry who you can share very tactical, specific information with, extremely valuable. And that's closer to what we're trying to build. We've got some local things and some local events, and we're going to be doing more in the future, but we are very, we're trying to narrow down on industry specific peer groups. And the other side of that is that there's local peer groups, you build stronger relationships with people when they're around. There's just something different about meeting someone in person, shaking a hand, giving someone a hug, and really feeling like they're right down the street from you. They're in your community. They're here to help. They're around. There's a different thing to having a physical presence, which I think really builds a strong bond. So in an ideal world, I think people have both access to a number of industry-specific peers as well as just a local group that's relatively industry agnostic and non-competitive.
Going back to the pricing, have you tried different pricing models? what has been the feedback in there, and has the members said that why is it so cheap, why is it so expensive? Because I guess for the right people the value could be huge, and at the same time the price tag for them which they would be willing to pay for that would be maybe 10, maybe 100 times more than someone who maybe hasn't gone through a tough moment and maybe hasn't received this type of support or help. How has it been?
Yeah, we are more on the affordable side of peer groups. I think EO, they've got a large first year integration fee. I think it's 5,000 to 7,000 just for the annual, or their first year onboarding fee, and I think it's another 5 to 7, or it's like 5 to 10,000 chapter dependent for ongoing local dues. So first year could be between $8,000 and $13,000 generally, and then ongoing like 7 to 10. The Vistage YPO are both upwards of $20,000 a year. Most other peer groups are relatively similar. Ours cost $400 a month, so you can compare that on a scale. Our pricing has been, we've never had a bulk at pricing. It seems most business owners, if you're doing over $1.5 million, $2 million in sales, the difference in pricing between $3,000, $5,000, $7,000, if we were to raise the price, it's less, they make decisions less on the actual price tag as much as they do the quality of the people who are in the room, because generally what you can sort of abstract when you take into a peer group is that if you are regularly sharing information that is valuable to you and is valuable to others, and you can fix things in your companies faster, learn new marketing strategies that other people are going through, hear about how someone else spent $50,000 and totally flushed down the toilet, or how it was an amazing business expense. You can take those stories and anecdotes and apply them to your company. At the end of the day, what you do is you actually save money and make less mistakes than you normally would, and that actually turns into ROI. If you're running a company on a $5 million P&L, paying $7,000 for making less mistakes every year is, it's relatively affordable. So that's we've gotten less of a bulk on price. Anytime, I'll say, when a customer has not signed up with us, it's usually been because we haven't built the right group for them, which is completely reasonable.
Well, there are not too many people so committed, so all in like yourself, and you're definitely not someone I would like to compete with building communities, because last year at the same time you bought the van, you invested $42,000 to live this van life. So I bought this camper van to travel the country and host small business meetups everywhere I go. So it happened at the same time last year. What was the decision behind this? How did it go? And at the same time, you said also that this thing is the greatest B2B marketing tool anyone has ever invented. So I like this.
Yeah, it's been a year. It's been a ton of fun. I did that original trip, I think it was February to March, all around like the New England area, 16 different cities through New England and the Midwest. And a month went by, I went back out, did another few events, I think in Cincinnati and Indianapolis again. I had so much fun on that trip. I was like, how do I do more of this? And on that first trip, I was driving around in an SUV and just getting shoddy hotels and Airbnbs anywhere I went. And I was like, how do I do more of this? How do I do it better? Because, I'm building like a brand, I'm building a reputation. People seem to love this. There's not other people doing these in these cities. I'm meeting a ton of interesting people who I'd like to know for a while. And it's just a fun life story. It was just a really, really fun life story. So I was thinking about how do I do this even bigger, even better. I went back and forth. I was like, am I going to buy an RV with like a truck and attach a trailer onto it? Do I do the van life thing? I don't know. Do I buy a giant like school bus type van? Do I buy a smaller one? And eventually I found this van that was pretty affordable in Los Angeles. And that's how I decided to make the decision. It was extremely difficult to make at the time. I was like, this is not a prudent business decision to go out and buy a van life thing and call it a marketing asset. Like, am I blowing smoke up my own ass? But it's worked somehow, and this actually being a bad thing. I am more notable now that I've driven around the country in a van hosting events for small business owners more than I am notable for building peer groups for small business owners. So it's like, it's worked so well that I have a branding problem, which is I'm not selling my service as much as I really ought to be. But that's what it was. And the fun part about it being incredibly useful marketing materials, this is one of those weird assets, I guess I'll call it, that everyone's seen on YouTube, but no one's seen in person really. So when you say, hey, I've got like a van life van outside, people, like their eyes go wide. You instantly become a very memorable person. They want to tour it. They want to step inside my mobile house. And it's incredibly memorable. It's very, very fun. It's not business related. You go to a business conference, it can get pretty business stuffy. And when it makes me so happy when I drag 20 business owners and service providers out from a bar. And I'm like, hey, come check out my van. I mean, it's hilarious. And I literally give tours of it, and it is hilarious, memorable, and notable, I guess. So yeah, that's why it has paid for itself, which is awesome.
Okay, now let's talk about you share the stories on your newsletter. What's going on? What type of things happen? How entrepreneurs think, and what's really behind the scenes in your community. So one of the tweets you made, actually 1st of August 2025, it got retweeted by a guy, Blueprint SMB. A nice nugget today from Larson from his ScalePath newsletter. And the topic is why one of our members is exiting his business. Maybe you can share this story, because I'm trying to share people listening, like how valuable this community can really be. And in one of your tweets, you even said that community might be the most valuable asset an entrepreneur can build over time.
Yeah, this specific story about, this person who's selling their business. I mean, in that newsletter, I just try to show my general audience, like, what are all the things that are actually happening in small business owners' lives, because I think people get very little exposure to it. Even if you are a business owner and you know a few others and you regularly keep in contact with them, I have gotten a tremendous amount of information from having, we've got over 90 members now, and I keep regularly in contact with almost all of them. And the amount of information I've just gotten to absorb of how people make good decisions is incredible. So I've just started to document what decisions people are making, like what are they, how are they fixing problems in their businesses, and putting the most interesting stuff on the newsletter. This one with this guy who's selling his commercial cleaning business within a year. Interesting story. He bought it. It was, maybe the 200th, 250th best performing commercial cleaning franchise in their franchise network. Grew it to nearly a top 10 franchise, doubled the revenue, and is still a bit jaded from the commercial cleaning industry. And there were a few reasons that they were. Number one is competition's everywhere. You never scale out of competition. It never gets easy. There's always going to be someone else bidding on a project, no matter how big, no matter how small. Another one is cleaners. They're just a very, very difficult workforce to manage. Lots of call outs to work, usually, some type of problems in the home. It's not someone's first choice, usually first career choice to be a commercial cleaner. High churn, high turnover. It's just very, very difficult. And the business purely revolves around having lots and lots of employees. I think I said some amount of revenue, but if you want to do 10 million in commercial cleaning, you need 200, 400 employees. If you want to do 10 million in plumbing, you need close to 50. It's you're managing less people for a much larger output of work. So those were a few reasons, and I think the largest reason was he spoke with a handful of business owners who are doing over 30, around 50 million in sales in commercial cleaning, and all of them were miserable. And it's that classic trope of, hey, if you want to figure out whether you're going to be happy in your current career path, look at the person who's 5-10 years ahead of you. Are they doing something that you want to do? And this case, he took it to small business ownership, and he didn't see that anyone else had solved the problem despite 30-40 years of experience in their trades. So he said, I might not be the person to solve this problem. On top of that, he's got great partners and a lot of other great opportunities. And for him, I don't think the juice was worth the squeeze in this industry.
And just for obvious reasons, obviously, you can't share all the stories and conversations which are going on there. Everyone understands this, but imagine the value for the right person, maybe someone who's managing a holding company, and he's been actually considering buying this type of business. And now, thanks to knowing what happened and what is the reality of accomplishing all those dreams with this type of business, you find yourself in a position that it might not be the best idea to buy this business.
Yeah. And I also think this it comes with a number of options. I'll say two stories. Like this commercial cleaning business, it's honestly a great business for cutting teeth, because like you call a customer, none of them are happy with their current commercial cleaner, so you can win them, but then you might be the new commercial cleaner that they're not happy with, because keeping production at like a high quality level is just very difficult. But it's a great industry to cut your teeth with. You're learning how to hire people, you're experiencing tons of problems. It might not be the most profitable, but you're going to learn operations pretty darn well, and you're going to get really used to stress, which you should be as a small business owner. A second story which just popped into my head is, we've got this guy who's likely about to join our community. He bought a boat upholstery repair company. And he just flashed in my mind, because there's all these pros and cons about buying a different business. And after years of discussions with peer group, inside of our peer groups, you can buy into a business that maybe it doesn't scale to 10 or 50 or 100 million. But if you are able to build something, you can scale it up to a point where you can be mostly hands off, and it can print a couple $100,000 to $300,000 a year for you, and you invest less than 10 hours a week into it. A lot of businesses are they can do that, and commercial cleaning is one of them. I mean, getting to $1 million in EBITDA is going to be much more difficult, but $200,000-$300,000, you've got one really core key manager, superintendent who oversees other managers. Like, it's absolutely possible. And I should say that you don't need to do all of the analysis before you jump into an acquisition. You should do plenty. But if it's not the perfect business, having something you can build and focus on that gets you a nice nest egg for you and can go and decide what to do the next thing with, and have a bit more optionality, especially if you're just a searcher with less optionality. Having a business that's functioning and running is a much better spot to be in than not having one.
Now, you also shared some of the lessons. You posted those tweets. One was, for example, in July 9th, 2025, lessons on inexperienced business owner versus experienced business owner. Do you remember this tweet? Maybe you can share what did you learn? And
yeah,
this is more relatable for more folks. It's not that specific. It's for everyone.
Yeah, I do remember this. So I said, inexperienced business owner hires someone they think will be great, notices a handful of red flags quickly, screws up basic things, doesn't have the right attitude, but they keep them on for a few months hoping for change. Experienced business owner fires that person in the first month. And the story behind this, it's a bit crude of a tweet, but the story behind this is I've heard the same story like 3 times now, where someone hires an employee, they start they start not doing good in the business in every way, right at the start. I mean, the first few weeks. And this person somehow, like, if you send them on sales, they screw up sales. If they send on production, they waste material. If you send them to talk to a customer, it goes very bad in some way. And somehow this person has also always been in charge of some type of piece of company property and has damaged it also in the first month. And I just have heard it 3 times in a row now of like the exact same story. And it seems like, and I don't know how to call it. In our peer groups, one of the business owners of an employee who did that just said he was just like very clumsy. He was just like odd, but just like a consistently clumsy person. And it's hard to notice those personalities, but I do think as you grow as a business owner, you just start to pattern recognize what a bad culture fit is quickly with someone who's not going to get into the role fast. You start to pattern match much quickly and make better decisions.
I guess there are some common problems or discussions you're going through, and one seemed to be lessons on undercapitalization, like folks underestimating their working capital needs. And this obviously has been the discussion in one of the groups or group calls. And there are lots of people saying that this has been through like so many times in different businesses and in various times.
This is a very well-known guy in the acquisition space. I won't give him away, but it's just, you have no idea what working capital needs you actually need until you run the business. And before you actually run the business, it all just looks like a math problem, and it's everyone's idea of what's going to work, but it's not actually what's going to work. And this guy's recommendation to our peer group, or just what he sees in the market, is that everyone should practically take every single dollar of capital available to them that a bank will give them, and to scratch and claw for every dollar they can get. Because especially during an asset acquisition where you are acquiring the assets of a business into another entity, that entity has no banking history, and you don't start getting that banking history until 24 months later. And let's say your business is growing at 50% month over month or year, pick a number. Banks don't care. Like, banks don't care until you have a couple years of history, of bankable history. And you could be growing a ton, but you need cash, you need debt to fund the growth. They're not going to give it to you. And that's going to cause you to get into a cash flow crunch, not be able to pay employees, despite what you would like to do, which is grow and capture opportunity. So that was his recommendation, is take every dollar that the bank's possibly going to give you, because you don't get anything for the next 2 years.
Now, these days, obviously, it's, or like, you can listen all the podcasts and things, but I think having those proper open conversations with people on a similar journey is great. And another story you've shared is, it's not even about like that the business was struggling. It was that the business owner was about to burn out, because the story you shared that he was on a trip to Japan for 2 weeks, and he thought that it's going to be like a perfect reset, but instead he came back more exhausted than he felt. And when it comes to the business, it was like almost 1 million in EBITDA. That's maybe 6 hours a day of actual work, and not involved in 90% of day-to-day minuta. And why I found this story to be interesting is that it doesn't always need to be this business problem. It can be this personal problem, which obviously affects the business and their life. So you mentioned therapy. So if you do those calls, or if the conversations are going on there, how much it is about the actual problem, like this business being undercapitalized, or someone made a wrong hire, or how much it is when it comes to like some mindset issues or proper therapy? Like, maybe what is the ratio, if you can say? I guess it can change on week-to-week basis, but how is it typically?
It's about 10%. It's about 10%. And any time that we have an issue where it seems like a type of mindset is getting in someone's way, or someone truly just needs to vent about some stuff going on or problems that they've had, we go into it. I don't think we are detracting anything from the therapy that people need versus the amount that they're getting. Every single time that someone wants to bring something up or is truly frustrated by someone, they bring it to the group and we talk about it. And it can take, I don't know, anywhere between 10 minutes, 35 minutes kind of at the maximum. You can get a lot done in a short period of time, 15, 20 minutes. That's the amount of time that takes. So I'd probably say about 10% of the time there's a call with a little bit more therapy. Or just a very, very soft topic like this one. And this is one of those topics where, it was burnout for a very odd reason, because the business wasn't particularly difficult to run, but he was still, this is why I think that he was burnt out. But business owners, after they acquire a business and they're under a large amount of SBA debt, in the first 18 months, and this person they recently acquired about a year ago. So they were a year into their acquisition, took a large trip. But still, I think there's this background sort of hole that's burning in someone's head when they've got a large amount of SBA debt and they're still just getting used to it. This person increased their cash flow position considerably. EBITDA's way up. They're paying for more stuff. Team's grown. Like, they're in a great spot. But I still think that it just takes some time to settle into someone's shoes as a business owner through acquisition.
There's another post where like the real work starts once the deal is closed. Oftentimes people think that all the hard work is before the deal, but the reality is that all the work starts post-acquisition. So what I'm trying to ask is, what have you seen the importance from the people who've joined, like before the bad thing has actually happened, and actually reaching out to a coach or joining a peer group when things are going well, versus like joining like, okay, there's a fire going on, I need to solve it right away, and it's like a bit of like a panic already. Like what have you seen, and what maybe is obviously you're biased, but your suggestion and maybe what you seen from the members saying, like when exactly did they decide to join a peer group?
Yeah, I think on my end of like the customer experience, and I think every business owner has been through a period of at least several months that were extremely enticing. I'm forgetting the word. That were extremely anxiety, stressful, just incredibly difficult. And when they think about a peer group, and like a lot of experienced business owners know that it will come in the future. Like, it's not their last, time that they'll be stressful. They'll be stressed out. They know and they see like, oh, I wish I had something like this when I went through an incredibly difficult period of time. So most just sort of get it. They recognize the value, especially if they've already been through a stressful time. Another group has not thought of a peer group, and then I will like meet them during an incredibly stressful time. And I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but it's a pretty strong experience, especially if they're willing and open to be vulnerable. We had a member join us a while ago, who has since gone through a bankruptcy, through acquiring an electric installation company, electric new construction company, and he was able to get dropped, in the middle of what is likely like his company going under, or right in the vague sort of gray area where that it hasn't happened yet, but it probably will unless we do a really good job at this next large construction project. Like, in that area, he joined us and was able to get to brass tacks immediately. I do think, like, another member said this, but like speed to brass tacks of joining another group of business owners who already know who you are, what you're going through. Like, they're effectively different versions of you, maybe in slightly different businesses, plumbing versus electric, but they understand who you are, the types of people you're hiring, the decision you're making on a regular day-to-day basis, and they're able to help you. And all of their experience can be additive to yours, and I think that just impacts the personal aspect of what someone's going through.
One more story I want you to share, because this was one of the tweets you made in early this year, March 14th, and this was about a common theme I've noticed with most entrepreneurs who bought the business 2 to 3 years ago. The idea of buy a small business, grow it over 30 years, own 100% of it, becomes less desirable. At the 2 to 3 year mark, depending on the business scale, you start seeing the realities and constraints of growing a business, and you feel the personal fatigue of continuously being in the business and finding fires all the time. So has it been like a common common thing for maybe your members or other business owners you've talked to, that this dream will change once you're in the trenches, grinding, building, solving problems?
Yeah, I think it's pretty common. I mean, you can buy a business with very, very good intentions, but in 5 years, you're going to have learned a radical amount of things that you would not have learned before you had bought a business, which is why I think it's entirely normal for the vision to change. I think a lot of people buy and hold for the 30-year mentality, and then that starts to look good, but then either they hit a point where they'll hit a point where they're happy financially, and they are that small business boomer that they bought the company from, and they're like, yeah, honestly, like working 15 to 30 hours a week, making $350,000 that supports my family is pretty damn good. That's a pretty damn good life. And either an element of happiness, or they've found success, or they've gotten tired of their industry, or want to move on. That we've got several folks in that bucket where a lot of the reasons they'll consider selling is because, a few different reasons. A business partner that they had thought was going to be phenomenal has ended up to be less than desirable, on a range from, this person is about to bankrupt me, this is an awful partner to be partnered with, as well as like, this person's just not really doing what they said that they were going to do and isn't capable for the next stage of growth. Another is just being, disillusioned with the industry a little bit. It's very, very easy to be optimistic as a searcher and want to buy everything and think that you're capable of buying anything and growing it to 100 million in sales. But in reality, it's just extremely difficult. Some businesses are a lot easier than others, candidly. And none of it's easy, but some of it's easier than others. Mm-hmm. So I just think that there's a ton of reasons why someone would want to sell. They see a different industry as being attractive. Some people want to go back and get a W-2. They learn that the stress is not something that they want to tolerate in their lives for a longer period of time, and that the freedom of being a business owner isn't as good as they thought. There's a ton of reasons why people would sell.
Now, before talking about your own maybe lessons about various businesses, I want to, maybe there's someone listening who's like, okay, I like this guy, Rand, he has this drive, I like his vision, I like his commitment, this is the person I would like to work with, and they feel like, okay, I should do that. So what should be their next step if they would like to join ScalePath?
Websites, joinscalepath.com, pretty simple. What my email's rand@joinscalepath.com. In my opinion, we've got a really, really friendly customer onboarding process where we don't collect payment or any type of commitment until you have chosen and vetted the other peer group that you're going to be with. The other peer group members you're going to be with. So we share everyone's bios into the peer group that I think that someone's a best fit for. You review those bios, get on calls with the same people that you would join into a peer group with, and then we start the actual process of getting you paid and on the first call. So it comes with an extreme, you vet whether this is going to work for you or not before you even join. I know that the peer group conversation is going to go well, and if you can vet that the other members are good people and you can get an idea that's going to go well, it's extremely high. You vet everything that you're going to get out of it because, most of the product is the people that I'm introducing people to and the conversations we're having. So, I don't know, we've got a really, really great friendly process. So, my email is great, rand@joinscalepath.com.
Okay. So now you see a lot. You see a lot of business owners. You hear who lives a good life, who doesn't live a good life, who has time for their kids and family, who doesn't. Maybe what are the industries and businesses you thinking at the moment, you don't want to get involved? And what are some of the businesses and industries you are maybe things you haven't heard before even existed, but you are like, okay, this is maybe something I will do in the future, or I'll work hard to make an investment into this opportunity, this industry. What have you seen, and because you have this great view on a lot of different things?
Yeah, I do have a good view on all this. I don't like commercial cleaning. I think that's me personally. I know I've dogged on the industry a little bit. I just don't like it personally. For me, other industries that I would not touch, depending on the market, plumbing and HVAC does just seem really difficult. I think you can get very similar types of businesses, like economics and durability wise, without going for such a saturated acquisition market. If I was to look at plumbing or HVAC, I would either start in like a tier 3 city. Start or acquire in like a tier 3 city and grow from there. That's what John Wilson did, and he's grown extremely fast. But I know others, we've got a plumbing and HVAC peer group, and we've got a couple members in larger metros, and it's much more challenging to compete because they're competing against 5 different private equity companies that are all doing 40 million sales. It's just much more difficult. So I would go market dependent for plumbing and HVAC. I like towing. I like pool cleaning. I still think pool cleaning is really great. Oddly enough, I think a number of different type of construction businesses can actually be pretty great acquisitions. I just said the faux pas, like don't acquire into a construction business. I think there's a couple caveats, and we've talked about these in our peer groups, but don't acquire a construction business with debt. If you talk with sellers, have them retain a portion of equity or buy them out for the asset values of their trucks, plus a percentage of revenue going forward, like an earnout. But don't buy with debt, because that's how you get absolutely screwed. Is when it's cyclical. You will lose at a certain time half of your employees, and there's not anything you're going to be able to do about it, and that's completely normal. But if you have debt during that period, you're absolutely screwed. But I do think that these businesses can be bought on favorable multiples and terms, just because literally no one else wants to buy them. Pretty simple. There's a few other industries I like. Manufacturing seems really difficult right now. Manufacturing as well. And this is broadly speaking, but I mentioned the boat, the yacht upholsterer I spoke with. There's random little niches that it seems are great. Like these businesses that don't really have standards and best practices, where you're not really competing with any larger players or large national players, especially. If you find a niche like that, I've just generally seen people have success. And it's hard for me to describe exactly what those businesses look like, because they're their niche. It's hard to describe what they look like when they're so small. But those are the business where I've seen like people consistently have a little bit happier of a day-to-day life, because everything just seems just a little bit easier.
I don't know if you have a metric there, which you mentioned, like a happiness level or a happiness metric. Like which type of people or which type of founders seem to be happier? Guys running like huge, large companies, or folks like having those small niche businesses, which doesn't maybe have too much competition? What do you see, and what do you feel like? Who is the happiest? Because yes, people have different goals in life, but if we take this happiness metric, what do you see, and what do you which type of people are the happiest?
There's a couple. I do think that this is a mindset thing. I think some people, like we've got a guy who owns a commercial HVAC construction business, plumbing construction. He's acquiring a residential new housing development plumbing business, acquiring the exact same, but on the HVAC side. He's incredibly peaceful. He's an incredibly peaceful person. And like pretty darn happy all the time. I assume his operations are more complicated than he gives off, and I think it's purely mindset. I think he's just built different. And then the actual business operations, it seems like the less operationally complex, the less there is likelihood for people to churn, the more overseas talent that you can hire and build relationships with, even maybe a bit more contracted labor that requires you to manage less people as closely as you normally would. Overall, like operational complexity and anything I think that sets you back, right? Showing up to a sales call and not getting it, or hiring an employee, training them for 3 months, and then them quitting. All those little things that set you back, and now you have to repeat an action that you already did that you thought you solved. It's just a grind. It's very, very annoying. And if you've got a business that has less of those problems, it's a little bit easier, more tolerable. You'll be a little bit happier day to day.
Okay, Rand, good stuff. I always wrap up with 2 fire questions. What is the best investment advice you've ever received, and what is your favorite book?
I'll start with my favorite book. Gosh, I had it. It's sitting down somewhere. I'll just say EOS. We'll say EOS. Great option. Best investment advice I ever received. Broadly, I'll say like put all your eggs in one basket. But really, what I think you mean is like whatever you invest in, understand it extremely deeply. Just understand it extremely well, better than anyone else.
Okay. I'm very happy that we finally got to do the podcast. I'm super grateful that you reached out to sponsor the podcast. I hope people who really like, not even maybe needing help, but if they liked what they heard and what you're building and doing, I hope they will reach out and have this call and then make a decision whether to join or not. So because you're doing an awesome job, you're driven, you're committed. I can read your tweets and I always do, and it's super awesome what you're building. So thanks a lot for joining and thanks a lot for sharing your story.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. It's been great.